Hello, this is Jenny Clark with Solvability, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Florida GovCon Summit, which is coming up March 29th and 30th, 2017 at the Doubletree West Shore in Tampa. Our vision for the Florida GovCon Summit is to be raising the voices of Florida's federal communities. That's our military, our federal contractors, and all of those are supporting the overall federal marketplace. Our goal is to help small businesses win more federal contracts. We want to bring everyone together, be able to connect them with each other, identify opportunities for them to team together, and develop more relationships so we can all be more successful. Our goal this year, our theme, is teaming for the bigger federal deals. We all know that the future of federal contracting is going to be going after larger programs. That's going to require a team approach. No one group can do it by themselves. And it's going to be very critically important for the small businesses to get on teams with other businesses and to be able to lead those teams eventually in a prime contracting role. One of the panels that we're going to have is called Taking Care of Your Team. And I use the term panels loosely because we will be having a group of speakers up at the front of the room sitting on bar stools or some kind of comfy chairs, giving a little bit about their key initiatives so that you know who they are. And of course, you'll be able to see this in the program and identify them in LinkedIn on our Florida GovCon community group. We want them to each spend just a few minutes talking about what they think is most important for you as a small business owner to know about their area. Then what we're going to do is have them break out to other sections of the room where we'll have round top tables that you can sit around as a group, and they can say more information about their particular subject area. You'll be able to share that with your peers and answer questions with the people around your table, because a lot of times you have the same questions, and why not go ahead and get them answered together? That's also going to trigger some other questions. So we want to make it interactive. The main thing we observed from last year's conference, where we had over 120 employees, this time we're going to 150. I shouldn't say employees, I should say participants. That includes speakers and sponsors as well as small business leaders. Was that people really enjoyed the networking time. We want to make sure we've got plenty of that. We want to make sure that there is time set aside in our schedule and planned for ahead of time so we can make the introductions to each other that we need to. One of the ways we're encouraging our attendees to do that is by joining Florida GovCon Community LinkedIn ahead of time. Look at some of the members of that group. Not all of them will be attending the summit, obviously. Find out what they've got, learn a little bit about them, and when you're ready, ask me for an introduction. I've also got a team of ambassadors. I really call them super connectors, who will know a lot of those folks, and I'll probably connect you with them and let you make the introduction. What we're finding is so many companies are saying, I really need to make some meetings, but it's taking me so much time to send an email, to set up a time, to say when can we meet, set up a phone call. I want to have more face-to-face, and this venue is the way to make that happen by planning ahead, figuring out who's going to be there, and how about 4 or 5 people that you're going to talk to planned up front, and what you're going to talk to them about. Line this up, because we know SoftBank is right around the corner in May. You'll be able to talk to them again in May. When we say taking care of your team is your employees. Those are the people that you've brought on to represent your company, to deliver your products and services. You want to make sure that they're comfortable as a part of your group, that they understand the rules, they feel like they're contributing appropriately, they feel like they're compensated, they understand your policies, your HR benefits, and that they are included and they're able to move forward and really produce for you. So what we pulled together is a team of subject matter experts in a number of different areas. We're going to let each one of them talk a little bit about their expertise, and then as I said, we'll go to the breakouts. I made a list of some of the top questions that I get on a regular basis, the things that people ask me and say, I don't know how other people are doing this, but here's my issue. One of them, this is pretty obvious, but how do I make a profit when I'm bidding on a contract and I'm only allowed to increase my billing rates by about 3% per year, but I know salaries alone are going up by about 5% a year because I've got to retain a very specific workforce, and in order to do that, the costs have been going up just a little bit at a time. The other thing is, what am I going to do about healthcare cost increases? That is the next question that's on the chart. How do I factor in future increases in healthcare? Well, I don't know about you, but my healthcare insurance went up in a year over 20%. And I'm sure there are other people that might be in a better negotiating position than me as an individual healthcare person. But even so, I would expect that healthcare increases on average over the next 5 years are going to go at least from 12 to 20%. And for small businesses that don't have a lot of negotiating power, it could be more than that, particularly if you have a census or workforce statistics that make your healthcare plans more expensive. Now, one thing I do see a lot of federal contractors doing is many of the people that they are recruiting for their team are retired military. They might have TRICARE or other benefits that might keep some of those costs down. It's a strategy. You got to have something. They will frequently have a stipend or some type of health insurance premium that they are paying to the employee for the fact that the employee is bearing some of that cost as opposed to being on the company's plan. Do I have a way to set up multiple benefit plans? So many times I'm talking to companies about the different benefit groups that they have. It's one thing when everybody is in the same location and they have very similar demographics, their pricing structure is about the same, their cost structure, they're very homogeneous. But as you start going after more complex contracts, you might have locations in other states. You might have different benefit plans because a group of employees might be deployed overseas. You want to make sure that your benefit plans are consistent enough that they don't skew your pricing, don't affect your costing. An example of this would be if you had a benefit plan for a lot of Service Contract Act employees. Those employees under the Service Contract Act is also called SEA. Sometimes they'll talk about wage determination. They'll talk about health and welfare payments. And those are typically on contracts where you're providing programmatic services or running a base operation. A lot of NASA contracts or SCA or Service Contract Act. Those employees might make $20 an hour, but you're required to give them a normal fringe package of vacation, sick, and holiday, and then there typically be a provision where you're supposed to provide other benefits up to a relative dollar amount, and I think it's $4.27, but don't quote me on that. So that $4 divided by a $20 employee is going to be a lot higher percentage than a similar healthcare plan when you've got highly compensated IT workers that are making $100,000 a year. So you'd have a situation where the SCA people's fringe benefit rate could be in the 40% range, whereas for your IT workers, it's down in the 20-25% range. You don't average those together because if you do, subsidizing one group against the other means you're going to lose some money on a particular contract because you didn't identify it very specifically. And companies that are really going after a lot of different types of contracting opportunities could have a number of different benefits. If they had collective bargaining agreements, if they had, you can even carve out pieces of your 401k for different reasons and different groups. So yes, you can set up multiple benefit plans. Those can result in multiple fringe rates. They don't have to, but those are some of the options that you've got. What will the Trump administration do to the Affordable Health Care Act? I believe he's going to tear it apart. We really don't know what the impact's going to be. We don't know how long it'll take. We don't know what's going to happen as far as pricing, what they would substitute it with. Are they going to knock people off the health care programs? What are they going to do? what happened to most of us is our healthcare premiums rose because we were picking up more people who were previously uninsured. You can't really just bump those people off health insurance and say, I'm sorry, but you don't get to have it today. So those are some big questions. We know there are going to be changes, but we don't know what they are yet. The next question people ask me a lot is, I have Service Contract Act employees. What are the best ways to structure their benefit costs to keep my costs down? Well, there are ways that you can put benefits in what's called a Section 125 or cafeteria plan. When you do that, those benefits are pre-tax, and it will save you as an employer your Social Security and Medicare, because it will be, those costs will come out of the gross pay prior to those taxes being applied. That's one big way. Another way that people are doing it, and I'm not entirely sure whether this is the best way to do it, but some companies will say, well, I've got to show that I paid at least this much money in benefit, and so they'll say, I'll just make sure that everybody in the company that's on Service Contract Act is above it. I've seen more complicated schemes where they would charge the employees for their health insurance program, but then apply the $4.27 worth of premium deduction as an offset to pay for that. And I guess I'm saying that backwards. I always have to map these things out. But there are definitely strategies to do that, and there's some advanced strategies to do that. The next question is, teammates said that I should be paying out the health and welfare to a 401k plan, and that you might do that because that 427, if you put it in a 401k plan, you are providing benefits, and you can show that, I didn't say that right, it's not auto 401k plan, it's the difference between their provided benefits that they selected and what's left over instead of paying it out in cash. If you put it in a 401k plan, it's supposed to be more protective to the employee, and it's supposed to save you some money. However, the question I would have is, the $4.27 or whatever it is, let's just say it's $160 a week, because $4 times 40, 160 on a biweekly pay period, that would be $320. If I'm an employee that only makes 15 to 20 bucks an hour, and I was counting on that additional $4 or so an hour in order to make my car payment or any of those things, and instead you as an employer say, hey, I'm a new person, I'm not going to give you benefits, I'm not going to give it to you in pay, I'm going to throw it to a 401k plan, that's going to have an impact on those employees. What can I do to make sure new employees feel like they're part of the team? We're really talking these days so much about employee engagement. How do we particularly attract millennials? How do we communicate with them? What do we need to do in social media? How do we find out a little bit more about these people we're recruiting before we bring them on board? Once we bring them on board, how do we make sure they feel like they're a part of the team and not just that we slammed them down at a desk and said, there's your phone, good luck finding something to do. As our companies have grown, we've lost a lot of middle management and supervisory positions because those have been automated and people can do more on their own. But the question becomes, how do they feel like they're a contributing member of the team? How do they ramp up quickly? How do they become productive? Another question that always comes up is, should I just try and stay under 25 or 50 employees or whatever the magic number is in order to avoid some of these rules? And certainly that's an option for you. You need to keep up with what that's going to save you. But I wouldn't sacrifice your company growth for some more reporting requirements if you really feel like you want to be a larger company than that. These are all considerations that need to go, and that's why I brought in panels of experts. So one of the first ones I'm bringing in is Michael Valdez with Synergy Wealth Alliance. He's going to be talking about 401k and other programs. He's got a wealth of experience as a financial representative and knows how to structure these plans for the greatest flexibility. He'll be glad to talk to you about some of those different options. And it's part of how you give benefits to your employees, but also how you as an owner can make sure that you're getting the best benefits for yourself out of the business. We'll be having Mike DeVoe come from Jacksonville. He's with Keystone Benefit Group. He's going to help with benefit plans to fit your federal contracting requirements. He's worked with so many federal contractors across the state. He understands their issues, and he understands how to set up flexible plans that are really going to serve the needs, be competitive on pricing, and meet what you want to be delivering as an employer. We're also looking forward to having Carmen Scanlon with Insperity come on board. Carmen and Insperity are a PEO, Professional Employers Association. They have bundled benefits and ways that they can support you from a payroll and also HR. They can write your policy manuals. They can provide a lot of levels of human resources support, so it's worth finding out a little bit more about Carmen and Insperity. But her topic is going to be about employee engagement and how do you keep them involved, and how do you solve problems inside the workplace? How do you solve conflict inside the workplace? And as part of their services, they have a number of team members that can help with that. And she's told me some amazing stories of issues they've resolved, even between owners, that were just solved by Insperity. Next up is Marnice Miller, and you may know her from Human Capital Resources and Concepts. Her topic is going to be mentorship. She has found through the work she's been doing with her service working with Special Operations Command in their recruiting and human resources, that mentorship has been an important part of building teams effectively, and so she'll be sharing her thoughts on that topic. Next up, we've got Cheryl Hunter, and she calls herself the entrepreneur's attorney. She works with so many small businesses from startup stage, and she takes a different approach with those clients, really serving more as an in-house counsel than an outside attorney, and is very collaborative with her clients in solving problems and moving them forward, and has certainly a breadth of experience in all of these areas. When I talked to her on the phone, I was asking her a question about Fair Labor Standards Act, and she brought up 3 or 4 other topics, and I said, I didn't even know you knew about that. I'm so excited to have her joining our panel so you can meet her. One of the things that I just mentioned was Fair Labor Standards Act. Toward the end of last year, there was discussion about increasing the wage limit or the salary level for people that are exempt versus non-exempt. Currently, that standard is around $27,500. What that means is that an employee that makes under that amount is typically considered a non-professional hourly person that's going to get time and a half for any of their overtime. And the change was proposing that that limit become $47,500. So that would have brought an entire large chunk of the workforce down under the exempt. They would become from exempt to non-exempt, which means currently they're not getting paid overtime, but they would be required to be paid overtime for hours over 40 per week in the state of Florida. It's different depending on the state. California is over 8 hours per day. Different states have different rules about who gets what. That would have a big impact on a lot of employers. The other impact it would have in the federal community specifically would be relative to the Service Contract Act, SCA. It would take employees that currently don't fall under, they're supposed to receive this health and welfare package, and make that part of them. Well, when those contracts were bid, they were bid as exempt positions. If you change them to non-exempt, it does affect the costing, the pricing, and so how would a government contractor be able to claim and become reimbursed for that? That would probably be a request for equitable adjustment. Right now, as I understand it, they're taking this back to study. It has not gone into place. That and the one that came out toward the end of last year under the Obama administration that was going to change the requirements for federal contractors effective in 2017, that there would be 56 hours per year of sick leave for employees. In federal contracting, if there is a separate bucket between vacation and sick leave, it was typically 80 hours was the starting level for vacation, 40 hours would be the starting level for sick leave. Combined PTO, annual leave, paid time off, whatever you call it, was typically 120 hour generally based. Of course, 10 8-hour holidays or 80 hours. So about 200 hours of leave was the standard. So for that to have been enacted would have meant a big change to federal contracting, going from 40 hours leave for sick leave to 56. So right now that's on hold. I think there was an injunction. There were other things going on with that, but the word on the street is that that's very likely to be discontinued under the Trump administration. The other thing that may come up as we're talking about this is I do want to mention there are Department of Labor audits. I don't know how people get picked for these audits, but if you have a Service Contract Act, you need to make sure you're very carefully compliant. When they do come in and do a Department of Labor audit, they're going to be very thorough in what they do. Department of Labor also takes a look at, are you paying people overtime appropriately? Have you classified people appropriately? And for that, we mainly mean exempt versus non-exempt, who gets paid for time and a half, which is the non-exempt or required by law. And also, generally we say that an exempt person is a professional. They're making their own decisions and things like that. But there's a lot of gray areas these days. And you really do have to keep in touch with both attorneys and HR professionals so you understand what the trends might be in the types of employees that you're working with. We're also having Julie Lopez on, and she's really going to be more of a moderator, but she reached out to me when I announced on LinkedIn that we were going to have the Florida GovCon Summit, and she said, you know, I think there's some really great topics, and she proceeded to tell me about a number of things that I didn't know about. She's with Streamline Defense, and one of the things that she had mentioned, because we were talking about veteran hiring, and I said I hear them so frustrated going to job fairs and being told to apply online. And one of the things that she explained to me is because of these applicant tracking systems and federal laws, the employers really are not allowed to be talking to them until they have applied online and they fall into the applicant tracking system. So I guess I'm going to have to go tell them, sorry, but you're going to have to apply online. And it's frustrating. These are complicated things, but you've got to do something to get into the system. And it's a little bit different in a world where we've got more compliance required, and that's certainly true in the federal contracting community. So Julie's going to give us a little bit of insight on bringing on your team and the process of onboarding and what they do as a company. So, you know, I think as far as taking care of your team goes, we're just trying to remind everybody that people are your most important resource. They represent you. They provide those services. They're the enthusiasts. They're the people that you want to have excited about working with you, developing things for your company that will be beneficial to your clients and allow everybody to grow. So making sure that you are providing the support they need to be successful is obviously critical to your company's success. So again, the Florida GovCon Summit is coming up March 29th and 30th, which is a Wednesday and Thursday. It'll be at the DoubleTree West Shore in Tampa. We've got 2 full days. Our keynote speaker on Wednesday, the 29th, is Jeff Pearsall, who has just written a book called Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars. In that book, he talks about trust. He talks about constantly taking action, staying in motion, finding who you can team with, finding who you can collaborate with, bringing together common interests, and that's really been one of the ways. He gives great examples of how that's been a successful strategy around the University of Central Florida. The relationships with the corporations and the programs have really contributed significantly to growth over there. And that may be something that we could learn from in our Tampa Bay community, where right now we're a little bit fragmented, a little bit siloed, a lot of duplication, not really working together as well as we could be if we all want to have a vibrant federal entrepreneurial ecosystem. On Thursday, our keynote speaker is going to be at lunchtime Sid Fuchs. He is the CEO of Macaulay Brown, which you may know is a Washington Technology Top 100 company, I think for 2012, 2013, 2011, something like that. But obviously a big player in the markets that we're serving here in the Tampa Bay community, and Intel and cyber and IT services. And so we're really looking forward to him talking about his book called Get Off the Bench, which is all about developing relationships. And he's got some great advice, and we're really pleased that he's agreed to come down here and spend a little bit of time with us. After the lunch session on Thursday, we're going to have a co-opetition strategy session. In talking to Mark Swanson, who's agreed to help me lead this process, what we want to do is run something similar to a collaboration session that was done at Tampa Bay Innovation Summit a couple weeks ago, identifying here's some of the issues across our community. Let's get into smaller groups and talk about what ways we might be able to come up with some ideas for how to solve it and how we might collaborate. What we're really trying to do is say that Florida's federal community, those are groups of peers. And by getting together and talking about what we can do, information sharing, to really create a peer information sharing network or alliance. There's so many opportunities that come across, and it might not be the right one for me, but I know somebody. I'm going to send it out to them and see if they want to go after it. I might even introduce them to the person that says, I need to know this person. When I do that, my expectation is eventually that'll come back my way. What we want to do is attract people to our entire community by being better players overall together. So let's up our game through the Florida GovCon Summit. Look forward to talking to you at that event. For more information, the easiest way to find me is to go out on LinkedIn, connect with me, Jenny W. Clark, then also go to our Florida GovCon community and join it. And then we do have a website. The easiest way to get to it is govconconference.com. That's going to take you to the registration pages. We also have solvability.com, and that's where the summit pages are as well. We were updating the program online as we get these things together. I mentioned earlier it's like having a bunch of groceries brought in from the store and they're all over my house, and I'm not sure I'm going to get Thanksgiving dinner together, but it will come together. We'll have it all, and I really have appreciated all the support and collaboration that I'm getting from other members of this community. So I look forward to having this be a great event and one that we can really create some ongoing opportunities and programs from. So thank you so much.